Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome. For myself, I'm Leo, work for Hubraum, and I will be moderating today's second edition of Hubraum on Air, focusing on the topic of IoT. And I'm very happy to welcome today two panelists to our panel discussion. One sitting next to me, his name is Roman. He's an expert on IoT. As well, we have Afzal, who will be joining remotely from The Hague in the Netherlands. So this is a very international situation with me from Germany, Roman from Poland, and Afzal sitting in the Netherlands. It will be very interesting, and thanks for joining. Today will work as the following. Both Roman and Afzal will introduce themselves and share their background with IoT. We will go over into a set of questions that I prepared for that will guide us through the panel. And in the last remaining 15 minutes of our panel discussion, you have the time to to ask Afzal and Roman any question you have regarding the topic and regarding the discussion. So I would really encourage you to join our YouTube live stream chat. Put in any question you have. You could also use Twitter with the hashtag hubraumonair to raise any questions. So enjoy the talk and let's get into it. So sitting here on my left, Roman, give us a quick intro to yourself and to what kind of connection you have to IoT and when this first emerged.
Yes, hi Leo. Thank you for the warm introduction and for having me here together with Afzal on this call. I'm very happy to share a few thoughts on IoT, what has been done in past years. For example, I work in Hubraum, the same as you are, and I'm doing IoT activities. Hubraum means different programs, different hackathons, conferences, and things related to making IoT projects and startups commercialized with the help of Deutsche Telekom. With the Hubraum team, I am from 2015, and we are working with the different programs, enabling new technologies like narrowband IoT or LTM, with the cool, nice ideas that companies around Europe and world have and want to use those technologies for. So maybe just not to waste too much time on my introduction, I will pass the mic to our so-called IoT bullshit eliminator, Afzal. The mic for you.
Thanks, Roman. Thanks, Leo, for the introduction. So, hey guys and girls, it's Afzal here from the rainy Netherlands today. And unfortunately, I couldn't make it to Berlin because of new COVID-19 developments here in the Netherlands. But luckily, we are healthy. I joined the Magenta family, the Deutsche Telekom family in 2017 at T-Mobile Netherlands. And I'm obsessed with IoT. My first assignment within the Magenta family was also setting up an IoT connectivity platform in the Netherlands. Then 2 years later, I joined the maternal company in Bonn, Deutsche Telekom. And I'm trying to challenge the status quo, to bring some exploration in an exploitation organization. And I'm also trying, together with Roman and an amazing team, we are trying to close the gap between developers and telco IoT services. And I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining in, Afzal. So maybe once that you're already on the microphone, I can address the first question to kick off this panel with you. Maybe in a few words, just to start off mildly and smooth, give us a description of what IoT is for you and where you and we and the audience can see IoT in our everyday lives. What kind of use cases are we surrounded with?
Yeah, thanks for raising this question. Look, for me, IoT is the coolest thing on earth. But that's from a personal perspective because it's my job. I'm obsessed with it. It sometimes even keeps me awake. And I have this rule at home from my wife that I cannot talk about IoT anymore because she's getting tired of it. I'm so obsessed with it. But that's from a personal perspective. But if you look at IoT from a broader perspective, then it's just a means, right? the Internet of Things, it's just a means to achieve something else. And let's be honest, we are raising and answering this question like, hey, what is IoT and what kind of use cases are there? We are already raising and answering these questions already for 3, 4, or maybe even 5 years. And that also tells me that for other people, it's still a buzzword. And maybe it's even the case that the majority, they don't even know about the existence of IoT. So I think that we should, switch the discussion a little bit more about the purpose and look at IoT as a means, because it's just a means to bring more purpose or more efficiency in our society or in a business or in our environment. And it's a means to optimize an existing business or to optimize the sustainability in an environment or in a society. So, for example, if you want to reduce the amount of electricity usage in a bigger city by switching off the street lighting more often, you can just decide to switch the street lights off more often during the nights, during the weekends. But you can also decide to put some sensors in the street lights to make it smart and to only switch on when there is enough physical activity in the street. So you can solve this issue in 2 ways. You can do it without technology, but you can also do it with technology. And if you're going to do it with technology, then you are using Internet of Things, you're using IoT technologies as a means. And the same goes for example, for the railway industry. If the railway management company, if Deutsche Bahn wants to know the actual temperature of the railway, of the copper, to avoid trains getting stuck, they can do it by sending people to the railways in the summer, in the hot summers. But they can also do it with establishing smart sensors on the railways, which will send this temperature data to an application. So this is, again, an example of a use case where you can solve it without technology, but you can also be much more efficient when you solve it with using IoT. So I think, IoT, even though for me it's the coolest thing on earth, it's just a means to achieve something bigger.
Great. Thanks for that input already. I want to hand this question also over to Roman and ask you, what are your, let's say, favorite or the most impressive use cases around us that you see?
Actually, as Afzal has mentioned, so Internet of Things is about something which simplifies our life and makes it easier and more convenient. Not necessary, although, but it still provides a lot of value if you are speaking, for example, about something which helps you to maintain your health better. So, for example, even smartwatches. It's sort of Internet of Things technology. On the very early beginning, it was about wearables only, but nowadays it became much more complicated, and data which you gather from your smartwatch can be automatically transferred to other applications, which will, for example, switch on automatically alarm on your smart home device when you leave your home. You don't have to worry about that anymore, and as soon as someone will intrude your home, you will get such a notification. There are actually some examples of that. So that's one case. Another case which is quite, I would say, vulnerable, but also very useful, is about health monitoring. So understanding what should be improved in terms of your health issues, especially people who have this as a big problems in their health. And here IoT can actually save lives. Obviously, it's quite challenging because sometimes you need to go through the very long certification and compliance to make these things work and be legal. But these use cases are really inspiring, and this creates additional motivation for makers to create new products like that. So I would say there are tons of use cases, and for everyone it's something different. In my opinion, health, this is something where IoT can bring very big value to people.
Okay. I think this is a good starting point, and also a connecting point to my next question, which takes us into the future, leaping, let's say, 5 or 10 years ahead where, let's say in the case of healthcare or any other area of business or of our lives, do you see opportunities arising and trends coming up for this specific IoT technology?
Good question. So maybe I will start, Afzal, you will add additional details, because we definitely have very cool examples. I would say that more and more things are moving into so-called low power wide area domain, which means that if you have sensors which can work on one battery for years, install, forget them, and they will send this data automatically, regularly, every day or every week, you can get a lot of information and improve different processes. Not only people's life, but also machinery maintenance and stuff like that. So with the trends which are happening right now, I would say the most obvious is just tracking. Even simple asset tracking gives you so many information that you use that companies did not have before. If we are speaking about business-to-business applications, now they can improve the whole logistic chain. They can reduce costs which have to be put it in the final price. So basically, service of shipment can be simplified and can be cheaper for end customer. It allows to create new businesses, like you have, for example, I don't know, food delivery. This is what has not been on the market a few years ago. Now, due to coronavirus, due to all of the tech stuff which we have and technologies and infrastructure which is available, we can use it in our daily life, and we cannot imagine actually our life anymore after because of that. Yeah, but think about space. Yeah, this is where IoT can be super beneficial, and there are already projects and examples where the whole infrastructure is put it into space. I am not only mentioning here Starlink from Elon Musk, but also technologies which used to be always in the domain of telcos, mobile network operators. They are also exploring these upper levels of our sky, basically. Yeah. So a lot of things are developing, and even 5G is already something which is here and now, and it will develop and improve our lives drastically. Afzal, what do you think?
Yeah, you know, I think that to be honest, we will be amazed. And to be honest, I cannot predict this, but to give you a few examples, 4 years ago, I did not know that there was need for putting a sensor and a SIM card in the stomach of a cow or an alpaca, but it is necessary. And 1 year ago, I did not know that kidneys and liver from people, from patients, are being transferred from one hospital to another hospital for research. And that these people who are doing the research, that they want to measure remotely if the box with the liver or kidneys, if it's like closed, or if the temperature is okay. You know, 1 year ago, I did not know about this use case. And 3 months ago, I did not know that there was like necessity for smart connectivity to help elderly people who are suffering from dementia. We have elderly people, they are suffering from dementia, and there are many people who are taking care of these elderly people by bringing more structure in their lives. And you can put something on the desk with a daily calendar and with daily tasks, like have a walk outside with your dog today, or today your brother is coming to visit you. This is something that can be done remote. But you know, 3 months ago, I did not know that there was like a need for such a use case. So, you know, to be honest, I will not be surprised when tomorrow someone who is selling flowers will ask for IoT technology. So I think, you know, we cannot predict it, but we will be amazed.
Very cool. And where do you see, let's say, the people or institutions driving this topic? Like, is it going to be the new companies, internet companies like Facebook, Google, Amazon, or let's say Tesla as an automotive company? Will it be public institutions, or you know, who's going to be a driving force? Who do you see in the limelight here? Afzal, to you.
Yeah, to be honest, I think, you know, the ones who are like having the biggest mouth today about IoT are the big organizations, right? Deutsche Telekom, our friends from Vodafone, Amazon, Google. But to be honest, I personally think that we are not the ones who will drive it. You know, the only thing that we can do and that we should do is make our technologies as easy as possible and as accessible as possible to be to enable all these expected and unexpected use cases that will appear, that will rise up. Because I think that, you know, as I said before, IoT is just serving a bigger purpose, and to solve a problem, you don't need a business case. You need to start with intrinsic motivation. This case with like elderly people with who are suffering from dementia. It started with people who have the intrinsic motivation to solve this problem because they have like grandparents living in a hospital, living remote, and they want to take care of their grandparents. And yeah, so I think that it will be mostly the startups, people who experience some challenges, problems in their personal life or maybe in their professional life, and who really have the intrinsic motivation to solve the problem. I think they will be the drivers for bringing IoT, you know, to a bigger scale and to the mainstream.
Roman, do you want to add to this?
Actually, fully agree with Afzal. So it's always about ecosystem, yeah. And the ecosystem is a huge thing. It's not something which you have only one supplier and one customer. It's sometimes a supplier can become a customer actually. So to give a few examples, so for example, deliveries suppliers like Nokia, big companies, Ericsson, they use IoT by themselves also, and they create a special cooperation between startups and their big corporations organization to be flexible, to create new stuff and to explore new use cases. So here, basically, driver is a big vendor, yeah. And at the same time, the same startups, they can take these use cases and propose it to different clients, to regular businesses, or maybe to people who want to use it due to the challenges they have in their life. It's a very complex system, and all of the ecosystem players are driving this. Although I believe that if we need to name someone, I would say it's about people. It's about developers, those who are making real hardware and putting applications logic behind it. So these guys are creating this, of course, based on the demand from the market. So there should be demand of the market, and only then these guys will develop it as well.
Okay, great. And now hearing both of you talking about this and sort of getting the feeling that we've established there's both individual people, startups, and big corporations participating in, you know, developing this IoT technology and getting to the next stage. We've, I think, established that there's a lot going on, and it's a in-depth topic that requires lots of information and lots of participation. Where do you see barriers and maybe, let's say, fear in young entrepreneurs getting started on this topic?
Yeah. So maybe I will be the first who will answer on that interesting and challenging question. To be honest, the simple answer is that it's hardware. Hardware is a very complicated thing. It's not something which is possible to change in one night when you have applications, for example, for that. Yeah, it's a big investment. It's a tremendous amount of resources required to make it fly, to test it, to prototype even. So I would say that if you can use something which is already available in the market to test your assumptions, that might be one of the big solutions to resolve such challenge. Yeah, how to make hardware applications and hardware products more accessible and more easier to implement with the real customer to get their feedback. So for me, it's first of all because of the technology itself, one of the biggest challenges. Afzal?
Yeah, I agree because 10 years ago, software development was a big thing, or maybe even 20 years ago. But today, software development, it's a very mature ecosystem, right? It's even like this, that when you want to build an application, you don't need code. You can even download apps to create apps. But for bringing IoT to scale and solving problems with IoT, it's not only about software development, it's also about hardware development. And if you look at, the craftsmanship of embedded hardware engineering, embedded firmware development, there is scarcity. So I think that the fact that the maturity of hardware development is not there where software development is today, this could be a barrier. But I'm also experiencing these days that it's getting more mature. It's getting more mature, and I think that in the next couple of years it will reach the same maturity as where software development is today.
Okay, and maybe to give some guiding thoughts to our audience out there, where I'm sure there's tech enthusiasts, especially with IoT, and maybe someone of you is just getting started on an IoT venture. And we all know, or we've here at Hubraum have experienced that there's these barriers that we talked about need to be tackled. And I would like to ask both of you, maybe Roman, you can start. How could I, jump these barriers? How can I become an IoT creator? What steps should I take first?
First, you need to contact Afzal, definitely. That would be the easiest way. He knows how to break the barriers very well. But jokes aside, you can find a lot of information already available online, first of all. Second, you can always approach big players from the IoT ecosystem. And by this, I mean like Deutsche Telekom, like friends from Vodafone, which has been mentioned also by Afzal, and also corporations which are making infrastructure and all necessary elements for the Internet of Things. Again, module manufacturers, hardware suppliers, all of these players usually are very open to support and to find a cool, interesting ideas which will revolutionize the whole ecosystem. It's not something like Facebook, unfortunately, again, because it's software Facebook. Now in hardware, it's much more time needed for bringing it to the market, but you can at least learn fast and fail fast. That's what's the most important. And again, I would not suggest to do everything by yourself, and use as many as possible elements which are already available on the market. To test ideas, to understand customers, to understand the value which you provide, and find the business case for them.
Great. Afzal, what's your thought about this?
I completely agree. I just want to add one thing, because all the technologies are there. So technology is not a barrier anymore. But the most important thing, if you ask me, if you want to, create your own IoT solution or start up your IoT company, is that you have to learn how to be patient, because it can take maybe 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 years before you will find the business case. So look, if you want to create an IT solution because you need to solve a problem, the problem needs to be solved because the problem is there. But finding this business case or finding this customer or finding an investor, it really can take 2 or 3 years. So you have to be super, super patient. And that makes it even more important what Roman just said, that try not to reinvent the wheel. So don't do it alone. Reach out to other people to find out, if you can copy with pride, if you can use resources that are already there.
Yeah, reach out here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now that you're pointing at it, maybe we can go over to this. The Deutsche Telekom has an IoT initiative called the IoT Creators. could this be a starting point for young entrepreneurs who want to get into this topic? Maybe tell us a bit about this initiative and who this is addressed to and who should sign up or approach Deutsche Telekom's IoT Creators initiative.
Yeah, definitely. It's something which, again, needs to be on your radar as IoT enthusiasts, as makers, as developers, as startups, because it gives you a lot of knowledge about technologies like narrowband IoT or LTM. And what is very important, gives you easy access to these technologies around different countries in Europe already. So basically, those technologies which were not available commercially already like 2 years ago, now are here. It's in the air. You can connect to the narrowband or LTM networks and try to create your first application, test it, learn from it, and also implement maybe in your already available prototypes or products, which before you had to go through the long process of aligning, of getting contracts, of signing contracts. Now you can easily go get that information from online sources, and you can find that on the website, iotcreators.com. And again, it's very valuable for smaller companies, but not only. Yeah, so it's also for bigger companies which want to do and test roaming, narrowband IoT roaming. Half a year ago, it was not available. Now it is here. You have a chance to do it as well. Afzal?
Yeah, and I think that it's not only like that we are solving problems like roaming, but you know, if you want to address people and want to help out people who are just starting with something, it's always about starting small, right? And something that I mentioned in my introduction is that many of the technologies that are required to create an IoT solution, they are not really accessible because there are not flexible business models and they're not enabling companies to start small. So that's also something that we are taking care of course, with IoT creators. And also the integration of IoT devices. You in the end you want to have like the information of the IoT device in an application, in a platform, and this should be very easy. It should be as easy as connecting Slack to your hosting environment, or connecting Trello to Microsoft Teams. These integrations, you can just do it easily with webhooks. And this is also something where we help like IoT developers out.
Great. So I just thought of one additional question as we've run through all of my prepared guiding questions. This was good, very elaborative and exciting. Some new information for me as well, which I will take home. Afzal, to touch upon your comment that IoT keeps you up at night, what is the sort of single most impressive company or product out there focusing on IoT?
Okay, look, now I'm going to disappoint you a little bit, because the use case that I'm going to highlight here is not a sexy use case. But it's more because the story behind this use case and the story behind this company, it's about a smoke detector, a smart smoke detector. And the reason why I find this, the most impressive solution is because this is a great example of a company, a guy, a startup who's not giving up. He's already working on this solution since 2016, because he knew that at a certain time, the government, and I'm talking about the Netherlands right now, the government will make it mandatory to have a smoke detector in each building and in each house. And that time is coming now. It will happen very soon. It will happen in 2021. So people were like, where's your business case? Where's your customer? But he just never gave up. And now he has some deals with like 4 big insurance companies in the Netherlands who want to buy and resell a lot of these smoke detectors connected on our narrowband IT network. So it's not a sexy use case, but it's just, you know, a great example of someone who's not giving up. There is a problem and it needs to be solved. That's why I like this one most.
Okay. Roman, do you have one sexy use case for us?
Oh yeah, there are a few one. It's a company well known from Croatia, actually, and I'm not going to name that, but it's working in the bike industry. And actually that use case is very interesting, because I could not imagine that bikes can be really smart, and they can. Because if you put a lot of technologies inside of the bike, you will have a battery for that e-bike, for example, and you can do a totally different experience when you are riding a bike, not just from point A to point B, but you compete with your folks. You have a gamification on a new level. You can track whether you had an accident or not, and then information can be sent to the respective organizations like police or ambulance. This all has not been possible a few years ago. Now, in 2020, these bikes are sold in thousands, and actually e-bike market in Germany only is more than 1 million of e-bikes per year. The opportunity is huge, and some of the companies are already having cool technologies behind it. And as you call it, it's quite sexy, because that product is really emotional, and it gives you not only because IoT is not only about business improvement. It's also about making our life funnier, easier, better, giving better emotions and here with e-bikes is a good example.
Cool. No, sounds like a very, very nice use case. I will approach you afterwards, ask you for the company, and
you need to come to Krakow.
I will come to Krakow in that case. Perfect. Okay, so having had a very nice panel discussion, first of all, thank you for Roman and Afzal for these very pleasant and elaborative answers to all of the questions. I would now like to get into some questions from the audience to round up this talk, and let's see what we've got here. So one question we received refers to challenges. We all know that in any sort of startup environment, there's lots of challenges to overcome: funding, team, the technology itself, the product. What unique challenges have you experienced with any startup companies that focus on IoT? Is there unique challenges to this IoT technologies that does not come up with other products, other tech products?
Maybe I will give a very tangible example. Yeah, it's about the companies which were participating in some of our programs with focus on IoT technologies like narrowband or LTE. One of the challenges was that expectations of these companies of cooperation with us were different of what we could provide for them. Yeah, and for explaining this to them, it took some time, but we always try to do our best. And if, for example, this particular use case and the vision of the founders is different, they do not see specific value in using narrowband IoT because it's different tracking solution which needs to be, for example, always connected and sending data all the time, then we try to explain to them as soon as possible, so we and the startup do not have to spend too much resources. And if there is no match, there is no match. But sometimes companies come and they are not aware of this. So it requires additional knowledge sharing. It requires additional education for them. And actually, when technology just hits the market, it is must-have. And this is actually the responsibility of big corporations to improve this knowledge transfer, to give this information to the market, to the ecosystem. So these companies will not waste their resources, valuable resources, like startups, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what else we have. Okay, this is a personal question. I will stick with you, Roman. the question is, if you yourself were to start up now an IoT company, what direction would you head? What business environment would you choose? What would your product be?
Very good question. I would be very curious to know who has asked that, but let's check it later in the log files. I would say that, in my opinion, business-to-business areas are the most valuable at this moment and easy to tackle. Because if you have a customer who would be able to provide you a lot of interesting business processes, insights, and challenges they have in their organization, that will narrow your search as much as possible and will not require from you too much resources to invest. With the B2C segment, it's much more complicated because you need to tackle design, you need to tackle a lot of questions related to the cultural differences and the market differences in different countries. That's more complicated, in my opinion, than if you will start from B2B area, where you can, to be honest, easily find some client, some company who definitely has some IoT challenges in their current processes, especially with the Corona times, where you need to be virtually and you need to avoid contact in many situations which you had not before.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your answer. And I want to address one more question to Afzal over in the Netherlands. So Afzal, let's move away a little bit from the technical parts or technical aspects of this very technical topic. Let's go into more, let's say, onto like a philosophical level and speak about ethics and privacy. Do you see any challenges or let's say risks here on this massive amount of data needed by the IoT platforms? Will people's data be secure? Is there breach? Is there any cases where data can be accessed in a not appropriate way, let's say, by internet pirates?
Wow, this is a very challenging question and a very tough one. To be honest, I don't think that there are, the companies who are playing a role in the IoT system. They will definitely solve the problem that it can be accessed by people which are having bad intentions. That's also one of the reasons why it's a topic that we are already talking about for 2 decades, and it's not going fast because it needs to be done in a proper way. I'm more worried about the fact that the focus will be too much on selling and monetizing data, IoT data, than really solving problems and bringing value in our society and in our basically bringing value in our world. That's what I'm worried about with regards to data.
Okay. That is a very valuable point. Roman, are you raising your microphone to add on to this, or are you fine for now?
I agree.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then I will. Last but not least, it just popped into my head as you were speaking about the IoT Creators initiative earlier. I would be interested to know is there any events coming up? Is there sort of an application phase, or how do I engage with this project? What can IoT enthusiasts look forward to with this initiative?
Yes, so if we're speaking about the IoT creators, the easiest way will be if you open your browser and start typing iotcreators.com and go inside and see what it's all about. You can read about that, you can understand what is all. You can see if it's applicable for your specific location. For example, not all European countries are there. For example, Ukraine, a country where I am from originally, but it's available in Poland. Yeah, it's available in Germany, in the Netherlands, and a few more countries. So you can get so-called starter kits. It's a connectivity kit you can already get free of charge. Put it inside of your prototype and start playing around with the narrowband IoT. Of course, if this technology is applicable for the use case that you are working on. And for supporting those newbies in the IoT Creators family, we also support organizing of Install Fest. It's a place where they can come, they can ask as many questions as they want and resolve challenges that they might have during the connection starting with the platform. So it's something which we are going to have tomorrow in Berlin. And so if you are still in Berlin and want to join, you have the last chance to do it until end of the day. But no worries, if you want to sit in your apartment, have no risks regarding Corona, you can still do it. You can register on the website on October 13. We are going to have online version of it. So you can be also a part of the journey.
That sounds awesome. So, call to action to any of you out there who have problems with your IoT devices or want to get started onto the IoT Creators of Deutsche Telekom, join tomorrow, or write an email to Roman. I will give you the private email of Roman later in the chat.
And you can add Afzal and myself on LinkedIn.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Perfect. Another question popped into my mind after taking the questions of the audience. It's my turn now, I guess. You said earlier that you were also working on IoT incubation or innovation programs. Can you give us a little bit of an introduction to what these programs were about, roughly an idea of how a program like this looks like, and maybe also what kind of, let's say, success stories came out of one of those programs? Any interesting companies that you recommend the audience looking into?
Yeah, so 3 buzzwords. First, narrowband IoT, second is LTM, and the third one is eSIM. These 3 topics which were the most important for us in last few years in cooperation with the startups. We were doing a lot of prototyping together with amazing project teams from around the whole world. And some of the use cases are already in the commercialization phase. To name a few, maybe the most interesting one and the fresh one is a baby monitoring device, which you can use only for newborns. It's like really tiny. And these guys have implemented the LTM, and also due to the small form factor, they had to put eSIM inside. So it means that they have no plastic there. They use only programmable iSIM elements inside of that device. And this shows exactly where these technologies like LTM, eSIM, which are still fresh on the market, although they are already quite known, they were implemented with the support of our experts of our partners, technological partners. Now this particular solution is selling in Germany with the Deutsche Telekom sales channels, and this is one of the cool stories where you, as a small company, can come to hubraum, can come to Deutsche Telekom, and get some support from us in terms of technology knowledges, mentorship, sometimes also more. It's not only about technologies, but also about financial support that we can provide as a corporate venture fund.
Great. That sounds good. And I think are some good finishing words to 45 minutes of discussion. So again, thank you for joining me on stage, and Afzal for joining us remotely. Afzal, do you have any finishing comments as we are getting close to the end of this panel?
No, just that I'm very happy to be here on stage again. It was 1 year ago, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Thanks a lot.
That's great. We are looking forward to it as well. So, thanks for all who joined. It was a good time. I had fun. I think we all had fun and gained some valuable insights from these IoT experts. So make sure to join us again at our next hubraum on Air event. You can get information on the following events through our social media channels, as well as our website, hubraum.com. So stay in touch, and we're looking forward to see you at the next event. It will definitely be an interesting topic again. So have a pleasant afternoon, and goodbye.